I'm excited you're here.
Me too.
um, hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining. Man, it's Wednesday.
That it is.
That's the only thing I can say to keep myself from really, I guess you can say, losing my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
summer has gotten off to a good start, but it's been a lot.
Hello, Kennedy. Oh man, no, I'm excited. I'm gonna, get started with the wine. I have a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. It's 13%.
Mm.
Let me make sure I get it in a good view. Uh, have not had this. I'm really excited. I love trying new wines, which was pretty much the point of me doing this at first. And
Mm-hmm.
then it just took on a whole new life of its own, which I'm very thankful for
Yeah.
because the doors it's opened for me have been amazing.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta roll with the open door, right?
Woo, man. And the doors are opening and the blessings are pouring in. So I tell
Mm-hmm.
people all the time, I try not to look at bad moments as uh, bad days
Mm-hmm.
and look at it as, it's a bad moment, a bad minute or so.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Sometimes you have to acknowledge when it's just not good, right? And
exactly.
it's just that way sometimes.
Tell me about it. But
Yeah.
I'm in hindsight of it all. So it's got cooked color, it's got great legs.
I love
Plus,
Sauvignon Blanc. That was one of my favorites for a while. And from New Zealand, like that combination is.
it's a great region for wine.
Hmm.
I like it. It's
Yeah.
it's really good. It's not too dry. It's got a little sweet to it, which makes me happy for the people that say, "Oh, I like my wine a little sweeter," but it's like the perfect blend, and it's got the tan. You can taste the tannins in this one because my mouth got a little juicy.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna have to try that one.
So I'm really excited about that. But I've got you here. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do.
My name is Kerrie Jones, and I am an associate marriage and family therapist and associate professional clinical counselor. It's two legs of the same body. And yeah, that's me.
And welcome. Hi, Andrea. Uh, we met a few weeks ago
Mm,
at a mixer you were doing. And
yeah.
oh my God, it was a wonderful experience. I didn't know what I was walking into when Jazz invited me.
Hmm.
I did come open minded
Hmm.
and, just kind of ready. And it was a very positive experience. I will say that.
I felt the same way. Yeah. I mean, I think I had a vision for what I thought it would be, but how it turned out ended up being a lot greater. And that just, I think, is attributed to all of the women that came and all the value that everyone brought and the great conversation we had. And yeah, it was a wonderful pleasure to meet you there for sure.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
and I agree. It was definitely. I feel like a lot of the time when we have a vision and it goes differently than what we expected, it's always a beautiful
Hmm.
situation. And seeing
Yeah.
so many women feel comfortable with opening up about different experiences was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes, it was.
I truly hope that you guys do it again. And if you do, looking forward to being there again, inviting people that I know as
Mhm.
well. So that way
Yeah.
we can just love on each other some more because that was amazing.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I think it was just Black women bonding, which we don't often get a chance to do, to like set down all of our hats and our responsibilities. And, I honestly felt honored that so many women would come out on a Tuesday night, right? You got to get your babies to bed, you work the next day. I think it helped that it was like summer, right?
Right.
But I think it was just I think it's just the power of even Black women when we come together, or people in general. But I'm gonna give it to us, right? Like Black women coming together just to learn from each other, to lean on each other, to share, to be vulnerable. There was a lot of vulnerability in the space, and so I really appreciated it. And yes, we will be doing it again. It's a quarterly event, so we will be back in September.
Okay. I will definitely make sure I'm there promoting it.
Yay!
Like,
Yay!
because no, we definitely want to make sure that, you know, women do have a open space to, like you said, be vulnerable, because it's so hard. And it's even harder because most Black women are pit against each other. So
Mm-hmm.
always that competition. It's always that
Mm-hmm.
distrust
Yep.
amongst our community, whereas other communities aren't that bad. I'm,
Yeah, and I mean, I personally, I don't. I have some insight into what goes on in other communities, and I'm in, other communities and women that are, mixed race and so forth. Um, but I think what you're saying is so true, and it's really valid. We don't have a lot of spaces like the space we were able to create in the mall, no less, to just, yeah, to just come and chat and like bare our souls, or at least receive someone else's soul. Like maybe not everyone was super vulnerable, but I think we were able to really connect and empathize with one another. That's really important, and I'm looking forward to doing it over and over again.
oh, for sure. And I'm like I said, I will definitely be there.
Hey.
I'm gonna go ahead and get started with um, a quick icebreaker.
Okay.
Hey, Micah. Again, this is more, like a rapid fire situation. So don't think too
Whew.
hard.
All right, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. What's the best compliment you've received from a boss?
uh ooh, my work quality was good.
Okay. What's the best advice you've received at work?
Ooh, I had a boss in my early 20s who told me he thought I was judgmental, and it landed like woof, but it was the best one. I think it was the best. He was transparent. I appreciated it.
Okay. What trait do you value most in relationships?
Most,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of them, but I would say honesty.
Okay. What's the biggest regret you have in life, if any?
I don't know that I have any regrets. I do think I walk around with the idea that everything is as it should be.
I love that. I love that a lot. What's your greatest strength?
Ooh, strength. I'm working on it. It's probably, well, I won't answer that way then because it's not my greatest yet. My greatest strength is like my resilience, my ability to just like take a hit up and do it again,
I love that.
keep going.
Now, because you're a therapist, I have to ask this one. What's your perspective on forgiveness?
Ooh, I love forgiveness. It's so funny in therapy circles. That's when people forgive me, I often have to like raise my hand, like, so what's your definition of forgiveness? Because I think everyone's definition is different, but my definition is being able to just release someone, right? Like, I don't wish you any ill will, judgment on you. Yes, you hurt me, and I don't really like you for it, but I can also let you go, because I need
Yeah,
to be free. So that's my perspective on forgiveness.
definitely. Now, still staying in your profession, last one. Would you rather chase after healthy conflict or false harmony?
healthy conflict any day, all day, every day. Yep.
That's so, I agree with you on that one, because the topic that you guys had when you had that moment in the mall on a Tuesday night was about self-care.
Yeah, that was the topic.
People don't understand that self-love and self-care both go hand in hand. It's not something that you can separate from each
Mm-hmm.
other. And
Mm-hmm.
before me and my journey with, self-love, self-care,
Mm-hmm.
I was more about false harmony
Mm-hmm.
over healthy conflict.
Yeah.
And now I'm understanding that sometimes I am the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes my own definition of how things are supposed to be, the way people respond, creates the disharmony in
Yeah.
the life that, I desire. So,
Mm-hmm.
with all that being said, from a medical perspective, can you let everyone know, you know, the clinical definition of, self-love and self-care?
Ooh, I don't know that I even know the clinical definition, or if there is a definition. I think, when in like the psychology world, um, theories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they as theories gain traction, and they, people begin to like implement them and, work them out, practice, you're a practicing therapist or psychologist or what have you. As you practice and work out those theories on other people, eventually there's like research that can like confirm the validity of any piece or the whole entirety of whatever the theory is, right?
Right.
So, and sometimes theories are seemingly in conflict with one another. So, yeah, like, so there's not always like, there's not one way to really approach, I think, anything. But when I think about self love, I think about, well, when I think about love, right, just go to the heart of that. When we love anything, like, we accept it fully as it is. And I think the easiest example, I think, to understand that, a mother to her child, or even a father maybe, but as a mom, I'm resonate with a mother to her child, right? Like, you have that baby is born, and like there's this instant connection for most of us, right? If I think if
Right.
you're mentally healthy and sane and all of those things. Um and like, you love everything about that child.
Mm-hmm.
They cry, they poop on you, they make demands as they get older, they act ugly. Sometimes you want to slap them or something, right? Like, sometimes they get on your nerves and you
Mm-hmm.
don't like them. But
Exactly.
even as that child grows, you love them unconditionally. You might give your last or whatever the case may be for that child. And self-love is really no different. And I think it's even more intense. It's a full acceptance of everything that you are, who you are, um, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And it
Definitely.
it doesn't mean that you're like stuck there. It just means I love myself here, just like you love your child. You want them to change, you want them to be better, you want the best for them. And so I think the same applies for us when we talk about individually, when we talk about self-care. I love myself, and at the same time I'm working towards growth and improvement. And I want the things that, the areas that I'm not so great in, or my flaws,
Mm.
some of them I'm going to accept as is and just chalk it up to that being me. And I recognize that this is a flaw that I have, and I'm going to work to improve.
I definitely agree. I I started, and it's so crazy because I started my therapy journey some years ago. And it wasn't
Mhm.
even, I was telling a friend, I said, I didn't do it for me. I said, when I first started therapy, it was for all the wrong reasons. I was just trying to make my relationship flow more fluidly.
Mhm.
So I was there for the wrong reasons,
Mhm.
to be completely honest. And then eventually I started going for myself, but it was one of those off and on things. I would go, start feeling better, then stop.
Mhm.
Go, start feeling better, then stop. Never
Yeah.
really working through a lot of the underlying issues. Or as soon as I'd get stressed, I wouldn't go anymore
Mhm.
because I'm like, oh, I'm too ashamed, to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And then when I think it was maybe 9 months ago, it was one of those where I looked in the mirror and I just was not happy with what was looking back at me.
Mhm.
And someone told me that the most intimate moment you can have with yourself is staring at your own self.
Mhm.
And I said, oh, heck no.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
that moment that broke me down.
Mhm. Looking in the mirror can be heavy, like the physical mirror.
Hmm.
That can be very heavy and emotional even, if you're in the right state of mind. Um, and I think what we see out of our own eyes when we look at ourselves can be very different than what everyone else sees. Right? And I think we see that in the world today with all of the women who are trying to like fix their bodies and alter their face and put on a new nose and, put on like excessive amounts of makeup and all of these things that, in an effort to make themselves look better because looking out of their eyes, they can't see their own beauty.
Right.
You know, they can't see their own worth. So they're so far from self-love that, it they end up potentially destroying what they have.
For sure. For sure.
Mhm.
Um, I, that moment was one of those moments where it was like, I had to be truthful with myself. I
Mhm.
had to be truthful. Not that I wasn't being truthful with my therapist, but I didn't know what I was really there for.
Yeah.
And once I had that moment, it became a lot easier to open up and see
Mhm.
things. And one of the biggest things that I, where I started was I didn't want to be nice anymore.
Mm.
I'm a kind person, but nice got me ran over, taken advantage of. I would rather
Mhm.
be kind than nice because kind has boundaries,
Yep.
loving action. Nice
Mhm.
was me, I would rather just be like, okay, I'm living in this bubble where if I don't do anything, but then I'm building up on the inside with this rage.
Yeah. Right. Lots of resentment.
Yeah. And then eventually what does all that do? It's like a volcano. It's gonna erupt
Mhm.
and you can't take back what you spew out after that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't even contain it. It's like I think it works in the same way as like emotional regulation, right?
Ooh,
Like,
I work
you
on that
know,
day.
yeah, so like people whose emotions are out of touch with how they feel, right?
Mhm,
They just it's again, it's like a volcano that erupts and all of a sudden there's like this huge display of emotions that are often triggered by something typically small,
mhm,
um, and not even relevant to the anger that's being displayed. And so
exactly.
it's the same thing with nice as you describe it, right? You're just pushing down how you feel, right? You're prioritizing everyone else.
Mhm,
And under that mound, there's a bunch of resentment and you allow yourself to truly feel because if you allowed yourself to feel it, you wouldn't be nice.
exactly. And that was
Mm-hmm.
one of the hardest things that my therapist had me doing was practicing feeling. And it's so hard to just sit with yourself, not go pick
Mm-hmm.
up a phone and tell people about it, not
Mm-hmm.
go and talk to whoever made you upset about it, to just sit
Mm-hmm.
there in that emotion, understand what you're feeling, self-regulate,
Mm-hmm.
and then proceed. That is
Yeah.
the hardest thing on the planet that I have had to learn how to do.
Yeah. I think it's hard for most of us.
But
Go
I'm
ahead. I'm
getting
sorry. Yeah, what you do it a little and then your tolerance builds for it, right? Like you almost can't at a certain point you can't keep moving without yourself like, wait, how do I actually feel about this, right? Like it becomes like your new normal.
mm,
And and that's kind of like that's what I preach, like that is at the core of what like I preach to my clients and what I hope to get them that place where they can do that for themselves because it's
mhm.
not easy. It's tough. You almost feel crazy time sitting there. Sometimes you feel like nothing is happening, right? But
Yeah,
that is like foundational to self-care,
it
right?
is.
Hmm. Yeah, and
It,
self-love.
you are hitting, the nail on the head. And so I had a therapy session yesterday,
Hmm.
and she'll start off, how are you? Now, I had stopped going for like a month, and then when I'd finally gone back, I had like this ball of emotions. It was just like, oh my gosh. And all
Hmm.
she said was, how are you? And I cried for 5
Yeah,
minutes straight.
yeah, yeah.
And she just sat there and she just said, okay, it's okay.
Hmm.
And when I say I was emotional the rest of the day after that, it was just like, oh my gosh, what did I do? But
Yeah,
it was definitely needed. And from that day, I've been going consistently again.
yeah. I don't think we realize how like easy it is for us to like just suppress, right, and keep going
Mm-hmm.
because it's almost second nature. And I think even again in the Black community, I don't know what happens in other communities, but I think we watch our parents do the very same thing. We watch our mothers do it and like just stuff it down. There's a few times I think I was looking for my mom in the house and stumbled upon her in the bathroom, like, but generally, like, I never saw my mom cry. I
Yeah.
never, I never really saw emotion, maybe outside of anger. Um, and so we just keep going. So like this makes me think about like my greatest strength that you talked about and in resilience. And I think the way that we can be most resilient is to pause in our sadness,
Yes.
in our pain, misery, despair, grief, whatever it is, right? In that emotional state and allow ourselves to really just feel what's happening and
Mm.
work through it and cry it out. And, but uh-oh. Are you there?
Yeah,
Did you
you just
leave?
a
Okay.
little bit.
I'm sorry. Okay. Um of our emotion, we deny ourselves of pertinent information that we need.
I agree.
And so I think that's why we end up in certain cycles in our life that we don't even want to be in because we don't pause to give ourselves the space to feel what's going on. And so I'm happy you had that moment with her so that it could get you back into this routine of accessing your emotions in that space so that then you can take that practice everywhere.
Right. Right. I it's rough, especially with, self exploration.
Hmm.
And that has been one of my greatest, because I tell people all the time, I'm not perfect. I've been in therapy for years, a
Hmm.
numerous amount of years, and it hasn't all been beautiful. It hasn't all gone where it's just like I am had some of my proudest moments. And
Hmm.
the hardest part is looking at yourself, reflecting back on how you've done things and handled things you could have done
Hmm.
differently. If I was more aware, I'm not gonna lie, I was closed minded about a lot of things when it came to myself
Hmm.
in situations.
Yeah.
And a part of that was because I did one, I had very low self esteem.
Yeah.
And two, I did not have the self-love that, we're talking about. My confidence was where it came from other people
Yep.
giving me compliments.
Yeah.
And if I get those accolades, then I was down on myself. Now I could give a crap.
Right. Yeah, because you
Like,
got to know who you are for yourself.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes I sit back and it's like before I'd be like, oh, this person didn't say this. It was more like I was doing it for other people versus myself.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got to the point where I'm doing everything I'm doing for me, everybody else's would be second nature. And sometimes I sit back, I'm like, damn, I'm dope.
You got to tell yourself that sometime. Because if you don't, like, who will? And of course, I think it's a good idea to be open to truth.
Right.
And sometimes you saying you're dope might need to be informed by some experiences that other people have with you, right? I don't think we ever totally come up with those thoughts about ourselves in a bubble, right? Like it does take some other people in order to arrive at that assessment, but being open to like getting that feedback and being able to tell yourself like, yeah, girl, you did that.
Right.
Yeah, then there's nothing wrong with it. However, most people will shame you and say, oh, you're too cocky or you're too arrogant. You can't do that. And if I don't toot my own horn, who will?
Exactly.
If
Exactly.
I
That's
don't have
love.
confidence,
Oh, I love that comment. Yes, we got to tell ourselves how beautiful and amazing we are. No,
all the time.
all the time.
Because the reality is that we are talking to ourselves probably thousands of times a day. And most of those thoughts are not automatically good,
They're not.
right? Like they're like those rote things that come up and it's like, oh, that was so stupid. Oh, you got to do better. It's criticism that we say to ourselves. And so if we can combat that even just a little bit with like you said, you need to hear that because your voice is the most powerful voice that you will ever hear, whether it's in your head, right? Like talking within. And I think even more powerful if you can speak out loud to yourself and say
Oh,
what it is.
for sure. I think that's one of the best things that I've gotten out this current cycle of therapy that I'm
Mm-hmm.
going through. And even with self-care, like I was raised in a household where when I say my grandmother did everything, like the cooking, the cleaning, dropping me
Mm-hmm.
off, paying all the bills. Both her and my grandfather worked, but she did all the woman duties.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to tend to certain things. I have no idea why balloons just went up, but okay. But she did though, the bigger things. And I just thought, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. And then when I had my own kids, it was like, oh, well, you have to push your needs to the side. You can't do this, you can't do that. You have to put those kids first. So I was so shattered, so just, and I had them so young that I have no idea who I was supposed to be, who I was, any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So now coming to this, person that I am today, and I'm seeing I feel so much comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
I meet people and it's not awkward for me. It's like, okay, take me as I am. Either you like me or I have more people that genuinely talk to me on a consistent basis now than I ever have just because of who I actually am versus
Yeah.
who I was trying to be
Right.
before.
Yeah. The real thing is so much better, right? Than whatever this mask or counterfeit or however you want to describe it.
Right.
Like the real.
Imposter syndrome, as they call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's it's so beautiful. And I'm thankful, like, my partner was the biggest push. It was a couple times where he'd be like, you need to go do stuff. And it's like, well, I do. I take the kids. No, you
Wow.
need to go do stuff.
to him, because most, yeah, I won't say most, I will not say most, but there are a lot of men who take advantage of that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I saw it with my grandparents. But like you said, my grandmother did all of the things, and she didn't have to work. She wanted to work. But my grandmother, she was like a powerhouse. But I think in many ways, he wouldn't even dare tell her what to do, even if it was go do something nice for yourself. But, she did all the things. Again, when you see that example before you, you think that that's what you're supposed to do, and no one so first,
Right. I used to feel
you know.
guilty doing stuff on my own. And
Hmm.
now I don't. Like, I plan stuff. Even with buying myself stuff, I would not buy myself anything.
Me
And when
either.
people, it was so bad. Like, and if you gave me a gift card and it was somewhere where I can get something for my kids, I was spending it on them.
That's the first thought that came to my mind when before you mentioned you to get out and do things for yourself, was like, I couldn't even buy things for myself. And if I did, it was all buy like two extra things for them, right? Like I don't know, there was this idea that I had to be like lowly and like not be not embrace the things that I wanted or who I wanted to be. And that kept me so long like in bondage.
That's so funny. One thing about me, I'm going to treat myself. I'm like, oh, I clean my room. Time for a treat.
You better reward yourself, Ken, because if you don't, who will? No one's really, out here checking for each of us. Like, and obviously, if you have a partner and you have a good relationship, then that is what we do for each.
Right.
Say, hey, why don't you take a break? Let me take care of you. Let me help you, right? But everyone's gotta take care of themselves, and often we're not. It's weird because we talk about people taking care of themselves, and yet we're still not really taking care of ourselves. Like, I don't know, it's a weird dynamic where, you know like, caring for ourselves, but other people aren't caring for us either because they seem to be caring for themselves. It's this weird cycle that we're in where, like, at our core, none of us are really being cared for.
I, I totally agree. And it's hard because, like I said, the way I was raised, I would put everybody else first. And now
Hmm.
I find it a lot easier to be, I don't want to use the word complacent. That's not a good adjective to describe it. But I find myself able to do things with a happier spirit
Hmm.
when I take care of myself first.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a term called compassion fatigue, right?
Mm,
And one of the he's a doctor, actually. He's a medical doctor, but he's gotten into psychology. Dr. Gabor Mate, like, I did a lot of his teachings. He's a brilliant person, and he talks about compassion fatigue, and he says, like, you know, essentially what it is like you get tired and weary of to other people and like having compassion for other people. And I think it's one of the things that often with therapists, as a therapist, a lot of people ask me like, oh, don't you get tired of hearing people's problems, or all of the negative things. And so what he talks about is thing is compassion fatigue. There's self-compassion fatigue, right?
mm-hmm.
Because when you don't honor your own needs, you really don't have the capacity to honor anyone else's needs, or to care, or to be kind, or even to be happy with other people. It goes back to like that resentment about earlier, right? Where
Right.
all of these anger builds up because you're not taking care of yourself. And in many ways, when we're not taking care of ourselves, we're expecting someone else to do it. And I think I talked about this at the event a couple weeks ago, right? Like, we're farming out our self-care needs to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Reality is that even if someone else is caring for us, they can't do it as good as we can.
Right.
And we don't really we don't see it that way, right? Most of us have clients literally roll their eyes at me like when I talk about self-care, because no one had none of them had been properly cared for as children. And so all they're looking for now is for someone to just care for them. And I understand there is an element of like of us, a part of us that needs love and connection and care from someone else. But at our core, we have to care for ourselves first,
Right.
and most people don't things like you feed yourself. Like you're not, if you're hungry, you're not going to wait for someone else to spoon feed you. Even a
Exactly.
2-year-old gets impatient. Like, listen, I'll do it. Let me feed myself.
Hand in the plate,
And
bowl.
food, yeah, they don't need no spoon, no fork. They gonna make it. They want to eat at their own pace. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you get in the shower. You're not waiting for your partner or your mate to come in and wash you up. You can
Exactly.
do that thing way better than anyone else can. And
Right.
so there are just certain things that we're better off those. And once that's done, then someone else can come and meet us with like the little extras.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And I will say that's one of the biggest things I am thankful for him with, because even when I was telling my therapist, you know, that she said a man that really loves you is not going to want you to give all your energy to him. And that was that moment when it clicked, like, oh, I kind of been looking at some of this wrong.
Hmm. Yeah. Part of that is, again, it's like this catch 22 where we want this thing or we're driven. I don't even think we want it. We're like just driven to believe that this is the way it has to be. And then when we get there, we hate it, right? And and it's really a dynamic, or I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it's a dependence.
Code.
But what
Yes.
hmm and so what ultimately happens is in a codependent relationship, you feel like you have to be needed and not wanted. And so that's why I struggle with, you know, why I understand what people are saying when they say like I need a man or I need a woman. And there is a need. Um, but I don't, especially in the at the jump, like to be needed by anyone,
Right.
even a friend, right? Like when you first meet someone and you're becoming platonic friends, like a girlfriend or whatever, you don't want her to need you for anything. You have to go out with each other and have a good time and get to know each other. And as that relationship develops, yes, some needs will arise.
Right.
I need to talk to you. I need to lean on you. I might need to borrow $20, right? But but you don't lean and show your vulnerability or hopefully ask for money at the outset of that relationship. And so it's the same thing in romantic relationships, but I feel like we come in and like we want to be needed, right?
Mm,
Like we think that if he needs us, then we think like then he'll stay with me. Then
exactly.
right, because we don't realize like we want to actually be desired. We want him to want us, right? We want him to like be attracted to us and like,
Yep.
again, to deserve us. Then as we grow together, we grow to need each other. And so it sounds like what you're saying is like you felt maybe offended by him not needing you constantly
I was.
because that belief.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I was. And I was even mad at my therapist for saying that. But
Hmm.
she's used to me by now. She
Yeah.
knows, like, I think she understands me more than I understand me. And that's how she's able to help me, because they go, oh, do you have a black therapist? And I'm like, no.
Hmm.
I'm like, she's white. However, she gets me. And that's just what it is. She just gets me. So
Mhm.
I stick with her. Now, she's not the therapist I started with. And I've gone through a couple therapists before I got
Mhm.
to her. One of the ladies was Black,
Yeah.
but she didn't ask questions. She didn't dig deeper. It was certain things that I needed. I needed to have somebody. I don't want to just sit here and talk to you for an hour and that's it.
And not get anything back. Mhm.
Right. I
Mhm.
need you to tell me, so, and I do need to be called out. Like, I don't mind being called out.
Mhm.
You were why would you do that? That was not the right thing. Would you like that if that was done to you? Tell me. You're being an
Yeah.
asshole. And that's okay. Because if I am, I am.
Yeah.
And I respect that. So after finally getting with her and me still being kind of apprehensive, because it's just like, okay, here we go again, getting to know somebody new. It's almost like dating.
Yep. For sure.
And people don't get that, but you have to go through people to get to where you're getting what you need. And she is one of those, she holds me accountable. She's going
Yeah.
to give me the direction to help me be the better person that I want to be. She's going to
Yeah.
ask me questions on why did you what made you think that? What made you say that? What made you act like that?
Yeah.
And then she'll go dig a little deeper and then she'll say, "Well, it sounds like," and sometimes I don't have the words to verbalize because I was raised in that you're supposed to be seen and not heard. I was
Yep.
raised in that I would
Mhm.
rather have, you know, I'm going to keep the peace.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I didn't have the words to verbalize a lot of the time. Now I can tell her, okay, well, this is what was going through my head and this is what made me do this thing. And she'll help me put it into context where it's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's exactly what it is. But
Mhm.
I couldn't put two and two together.
Yeah. And I would argue that you still know yourself better than she does. It feels like she knows you better than you do,
Yeah.
but it sounds like she's a great therapist and great listeners. And not only are they great listeners, but they're able to like pull it all together and synthesize. And again, like she asks a lot of questions. So the curiosity around like, okay, well, what happened and what were you thinking? And tell me more about that. Like, what did you mean when you said that? Right. So
Mhm.
she's getting information from you as you're talking that you don't even realize you're giving. Like, this is just you being you. She's able to like pull it all together and like show it back to you. And you're like, oh,
Mhm.
that's it. Right. But you did all, I mean, she did some work, right? Let me not
Right.
discredit us because we be in there working,
Yeah.
but
Y'all
but you
definitely.
did a yeah, you did a lot of the work. She was just able to take what you gave her and give it back to you. And so, just a little side note for people who are in therapy and are embarking on therapy, especially if you right? Like, don't waste your money, be vulnerable, be
Yeah.
open. And if it doesn't feel right, then maybe you do need to try a different therapist. But
Mm.
our job is to sit there and there's no miracles happening. We're not moving mountains. We are literally pulling things out of you. And if you're honest with yourself and honest with your therapist, you'll see some things. You'll get some clarity. So I just wanted to plug that for those people who kind of have trepidations like talking about yourself.
Oh, for sure. And it hurts.
Hmm.
People don't realize the deeper you get, the more it hurts because you are forced to look at yourself.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
didn't, I mean, I guess I kind of knew, but I wasn't 100% sure until she said it. I have abandonment issues.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
that's when those emotions come up, that's when I have to self regulate. I have to sit in that feeling and think. And sometimes it's just all in my head. I'm
Yep.
creating these scenarios
Hmm.
and putting extra emotion on things where it's just like, and I self sabotage once I get caught up in the emotion.
Yeah. Yep. You create the thing that you thought like you perceived was happening. that wasn't really happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's like psychology and how like the brain works and how we do things. And I just, I really want to say like there's no judgment either sitting in the space and it's hard for you to open up. I sat in the space as well, right? Like I was a client before I was ever a therapist. And so I understand like I had moments where my lip was trembling telling her this stuff I'm about to tell you. Like, right? But she received me and she was open
Right.
and she took what I gave her and she gave it in a loving and compassionate way. And
Mm.
I'm all the better for it. So, yeah.
Now I agree with you on that. And it's beautiful when you look at how far you've come.
Mm,
And I feel like that is the biggest self care I can give myself. Yes, I love to go out. I love to have fun. I love to do all of my wine activities and
mm-hmm.
even doing my lives on, like, people don't understand me doing this is my self care as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is one of the biggest gifts that I can give to myself is being consistent. This is me showing up for myself, being consistent, giving myself what I need consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what fuels me. That's what motivates me. And I'm happier when I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think again, it goes back to like sitting with yourself in more foundational like spaces of self-care, like sitting with the feelings like you talked about and with your emotions, you know, understanding what thoughts are attached to what you're feeling, what
Mm,
messages you're even telling yourself, like that self-talk that comes up when you're feeling a particular kind of way. And as you grow in that, then you get to know yourself better and you get to know what you need and you get to know what feels good, like your moment with your body. Oh, I learned that like I just like being in bodies of water. A lot of people just love being in a pool or an ocean,
yeah.
right? Or I learned that I love to like go out and dance and I never realized how much I enjoyed it, right? Or
I got
whatever
some.
those or it can be the strangest things, right? Like this thing that no one else enjoys, but somehow you stumbled upon it and you love it. It's your thing and it feeds you. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like you said, like when you reflect on like where you've come from, that is also like it warms my heart. I feel really grateful. It's almost humbling as well, right?
Yes,
Especially as a therapist, and knowing like, oh, I've gone through a lot of the things my clients have gone through, and I can, really be compassionate about it. But I can also look and say like, I know I can do it and get through it and get over the hump because I did
mm,
it. So there's
definitely.
so much that comes with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I it's so funny because, like I said, I was telling my friend about my whole therapy journey, and the reason I
Mhm.
started it was more so because I wanted my relationship to flow fluidly, not
Mhm.
realizing I had so many other issues that I needed to get to the core of. It wasn't even about, you know, but me being that person that I was, good Lord, I just got all kind of stuff going on. Me being the,
I was like, what is happening?
I'm like, what's going on? When I first started it, it was, I was selfish and didn't realize I was selfish because I'm thinking, well, if I can understand you, why can't you understand me? And that's not what
Mhm.
it was about.
Mhm.
And then the more I was really going for me
Mhm.
and not for us, it was like, oh, okay, so I was kind of the problem. Even though I had good intention,
Yeah.
I was still the problem.
Yeah, good intentions are not enough. You can have good intentions and be lonely simply because, and it's true. You like insight and like the ability to reflect on your own behavior, because everybody else is not always the problem, right?
Right.
And so it sounds like you were able to find one who helped you to the place where you begin to see yourself in the mirror. Um, and it's difficult work. It is, but again, it's rewarding. Sit there and like week after week, and it's hard. It's lonely at times. I tell my clients, okay, let me, because they start to get to a place and it gets difficult. And I'm like, oh, let me describe how this healing thing sometimes feels, right? Most of them can resonate with this, like it's a roller coaster. And sometimes it's a huge drop.
It is.
Right? Only down there, it's difficult. All sorts of things are happening while you're healing. Because it's a really, you heal in isolation. Even if you're around a bunch of people, even if you're in a relationship, you can share what's going on, but it's a personal journey.
It is. It is. And the self-awareness of it, of understanding no one can really go on that journey with you. Yeah, you can share your experiences, but no one is on that journey with you. No one truly knows the demons that you're fighting on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Not everyone knows some of the battles that I fight.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even understand the battles I'm fighting until I get it out. And then what I do, it's just like, oh, like the one I had on Tuesday, I was like, oh man, this was very emotional for me. It was good. It was in a good way. It wasn't one of those where it was just like, oh, I feel like but each week that I go, each week that I dig a little deeper, each week that I'm more aware of my own, actions and hold myself accountable, it does get easier.
Yeah.
And
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When people think because you go to therapy and you're on this journey of healing that you don't feel emotions. No, I still feel things. I still get triggered, but I know how to, like you say, self-regulate.
Yeah, because now you're actually feeling the emotions. Yeah. Because I think prior to therapy, especially for me as well, like I wasn't feeling emotions. I was just like rolling through life. And like you, I started therapy. Well, I don't know if your relationship was bad. I had a bad relationship. And so a relationship is what led to go to therapy. And I had a lot of questions about my choices and like how I ended up in that particular relationship. But I still think in many ways I was looking on like outside as well. And I think, again, what I'm hearing us say is like, you gotta look in the mirror. Like it's impossible. Your healing is in you. It's not all the people who wronged you. Sure, you can address that. There's some things that need to be talked about in terms of what actually happened to you at the hands of other people.
Right.
But there's an that happens as a result of all those experiences that needs to be, kind of explored.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So no, I'm thankful, and I don't know, we had this connection while we were at your event. And I was telling Jazz, I said, I felt like I was being therapized while we were there, like, because you kept giving me, I was like, okay, is she talking directly to me?
You know what I found, Yana, is that we're not that different.
No.
Like, we're different. We're unique, I'll say. We're unique. There are things about us, like how we're put together, that makes us like one of one, right? But in terms of like the way we function and the way we and behaviors, it can all be explained. Like
Right.
if you just take some time, like you say, your therapist asks questions, if you can just take some time to be curious about someone's story and someone's experience, you can understand why they do what they do, right?
Definitely.
And so, I've been there. So it doesn't take a lot for me to really connect with, I think, because even if I haven't shared your experience, I'm going to sit and try to understand it the best of my ability. But I do think that there are some things that generally a lot of us deal with and suffer with. And I think a lot of it is cultural. That the
Yeah.
children are to be seen and not heard message that a lot of us got, right? And that effect on the psyche of a child. And you grow
Mm-hmm.
up, and although you're no longer a child, something about that message is still sitting with you that you can't really until you look at it head on, like, oh, I'm not a child anymore. And maybe that message wasn't even, maybe, that message fueled some neglect or abuse or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we're not very different, which is why I think you felt like I was talking to you. I was probably sharing some of my experience. I was, I felt like I wanted to speak to things that I felt like were universal, that we all probably have some familiarity with.
Yes. And it definitely was helpful because I didn't expect myself to, be vocal in there. I was just like, I'll just listen. I'm gonna sit here. And then I got caught up and wrapped up in
Yeah, and that vulnerability.
man. It was hilarious because once I think it was just like a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my therapist and she's like, why do you feel the need to feel like you have to make everyone happy? Like, it's not going to happen. That's an unhealthy emotion that you have on everything. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Say fuck it? And she was like,
Why not?
and I said, oh, she said, you're not going to please everyone. Everyone is not going to be happy about decisions you make. But if you are happy with, how you handle the situation, a decision that you made, whether it's for yourself or for your family, even if they don't understand it at the time, then what
Mhm.
does it matter? She said, if you know you can go to bed at night with a clear conscience on how you handle things, why do you care?
Mhm. Yeah, that uh, I live in that space and it's there. It's not easy to get there. And sometimes, it still kind of comes up and, in dating situations, you kind of, you're trying to toy with that a bit because you do want to meet someone where they are. But yeah, like I think it got put to the test for me a few months ago with family.
Mm,
And, you know, where there was a side of me that I didn't feel good about fulfilling. And I had to really sit with myself for a second, like, yeah, I could do this. I could do what I've always done.
mm-hmm.
And I could just say, go with the flow, which I think is another kind of problematic message that we tell ourselves. So I could just go with the flow and do what I've always done. But I made a decision to do what I felt honored me.
Right.
And then, like your therapist said, like I slept well. And I didn't engage. There was an explanation that was being requested, and we're family, and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm not doing it. My answer is no. It was no. It's still no. And
Sorry.
care what you think about it or me. Like I love you, and I hope we can move past it, but I gotta take care of me because
Mm,
if I don't, I'm going to hate myself. I don't want
ex-
to hate myself.
and I think that's where a lot of, other issues come up within ourselves is when we do things to always please others, and then you resent yourself and you take it out on them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the problem
Right.
when I'm an adult and I can't, and it's hard. I say that very matter of factly, like it's just the easiest thing to do, but it's also not untrue.
Right.
I am the problem when I can't honor, unless someone's putting a gun to my head and unless I'm being abused. There are circumstances someone else is fully the problem now, but maybe at some point you could have made some different choices.
Mm,
That's neither here, but in those situations, yes, they're the problem. But otherwise, if I have free choice and I keep choosing to put other people before me, there's no wonder, when I look in the mirror, I don't like what I see
right.
because
Right.
I'm essentially not taking care.
Yeah. Because I will say that I've seen my mood be enhanced. Stuff that would used to stress me out doesn't stress me out the same.
Hmm.
And I'm happier, like genuinely happier. I feel a lot more free. What are
Hmm.
you doing? And I think that's the best part of it, is
Yeah.
knowing that not acting out of emotion anymore, which is freeing.
Yeah. I think the best example I can give of that for myself, even my relationship with my kids, I think they probably like, who are you? Because you are a completely different person, right? The only times where I'm still a monster is if I am extremely tired and I haven't had a lot of sleep, or those monsters have my house a mess because I can't stand that either.
Yes.
So I will maybe turn into another woman in those moments. But, when I'm tired, I'll tell them, like, listen, I'm extremely tired. My patience is like this long. So
Oh,
just a space, okay? Just stall me out because that's all I got for you. But other than that, like I feel like I'm more pleasant, I'm more free. I have
mm-hmm.
enjoy myself more. And it's probably because I'm not doing a lot of things that I don't want to do.
Exactly. And even if it's something where it's just like, oh, it was out of the ordinary, or out of the plan, I'm not like, I'll do it, but it's a whole no. It's like, okay, shit happens. Let's
Hmm.
keep it. Life is still
Yeah.
gonna go. We'll figure out something else. Like I'll tell people in a heartbeat. Okay, yeah, I know we made plans, but something came up. Can't do it. Can we reschedule it for another time?
Yep.
It,
And that's probably the hardest thing for me to do. Like once I said yes to like back out, but I am working on that still. Like I have the ability to change my mind.
it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
You look peaceful. The peace has come all over you as you have shared your tendency towards changing your mind. It's freedom.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. I'm happy. I'm like I tell people all the time, like it's work to be happy, and that's a part of the self love as well. It's intentional. It really is intentional. Like I was telling somebody, I said I affirm myself daily, and they go, "Well, how
Hmm.
do you do that?" I said, "Well, it started off with me writing on post-its, and I would put them in my vanity because I brush my teeth every day. So that's one place I'm gonna look consistently. So when I'm opening up the medicine cabinet, it's there. And then
Yeah.
I had a friend, she gave me these affirmation cards, and it's
Mm.
literally every day I'm flipping. And granted, it's for just a month, but guess what? Every month, every time that I'm reading them and I'm flipping those cards, I'm receiving it more
Yep.
and more and more. And the more I do it, the more I believe it.
Yeah.
So because it's so intentional, it's becoming a part of me.
Yeah. self-talk, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
as you're reading those cards, you are talking to yourself. You are telling yourself what these cards say. And there
Mm-hmm.
is some like research around not affirming things like that you just totally don't believe, right? Um, like I'm the strongest man in the world and you don't exercise, right? Like something like that. Too far away from like your truth. But there are a lot of things about us that are true that we don't affirm, that we don't see.
Right.
And I think most affirmation cards or like things like that pick up on, I think those general things that literally are true about all of us that
Mm-hmm.
somehow we think and it isn't true about me, but it's true about my friend. It's true about that girl over there or that woman who's in power. But I'm not good enough. And that's honestly one of the messages that most people walk around with that I've worked with. I think that's a universal message is that I'm not enough of something.
That's literally, I kid you not, one of the affirmations in my medicine cabinet is you are
Mhm.
enough.
You are enough.
And I think it's you are enough, you are worthy, and you are
Yep.
beautiful.
Hmm.
Because I've had moments where I didn't feel beautiful, so I didn't believe it. I don't care
Hmm.
who told me, I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And reading that every day, it's like, okay, I am. So
Hmm.
what? Someone else may feel like this about me. So what? This, may not be perfect. I nursed 3 kids, so but my boobs ain't where they once were. I
Right.
have kids. I have diastasis recti that, yeah, I'm not working on, but guess I will eventually get there, working on me
Hmm.
get back into the workout regimen. But
Hmm. Hmm.
it's like, but I am still beautiful, not because of the outside appearance, but because of my spirit,
Yep.
the core.
You were born beautiful. Hmm.
Exactly. So
Yep. Yep. And it's just the messages that come to us throughout our lives that shatter all of that for us. It's interesting when you look at children, small enough where they kind of understand what you're saying, but they don't in the world, right? Like, a child that you're telling them they're so pretty, oh, you're so beautiful, like how they just soak it up, right? And how
mhm,
they expect certain things,
right,
right? They're almost demanding of certain things. And it's like, this is who we were actually created. It's just that there were certain experiences and people in our lives that dropped that chipped away at our confidence, at our self-esteem, at our even lovableness, right? Perception of our lovableness, right? Like
right.
we're still lovable, but just the way we perceive our lovableness. And that's not really the way it was supposed to be. Fortunately, I think that's so many of us have shared in that story. And, I feel honored and I'm happy to be a part of the work to help like turn that mindset around for people.
For
And again,
sure.
it's not easy work, but in my mind, that's my goal for my clients. My clients all come in with goals. Like you came in with a goal about working on your relationship and, so on and so forth. But I think my goal for all of my clients when they leave me is to walk out feeling beautiful,
Yes.
right? Knowing that they are lovable and that they
Mm,
are.
for sure. For sure. Now, because we've been going for a little over an hour, which is great. It was a great
Yeah.
conversation.
I don't
Um,
even know how we got here. Like, where did an hour go?
no, and I like when it flows fluidly because it's just like
Hmm.
it was organic.
Yep.
But I know we both got kids. We both got work.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
what advice can you leave everybody with to help with their self-care, self-love journey?
I honestly think, and might sound crazy, but the pivotal moment for me in my self-love journey was just understanding that there was a self in me. I don't know, there was like I was so disconnected, right? Disconnected from my emotions. Like I was almost like fractured, right? There was just pieces of me and maybe even broken a little bit, although a lot of people don't like to really say we're ever broken. But I was a bit fractured and splintered from myself. And the one thing that really helped me was to like breathe. And so that's why I often like, start people off with just taking some time to breathe. Even at our event, we did a bit of a breathing exercise to really
Yeah.
get in touch. Yeah, to get in touch with your breath, like your body. God gave us everything we needed to take care of ourselves. There are some of us with some disabilities and handicaps. But overall, he gave us everything we needed. That give us data and information. Our bodies signal us to things like we are well equipped to protect ourselves, all those things, but we just have to be connected with
Yeah.
ourselves in order to do it. And so, a very basic thing I would say is just take time to just notice how you breathe and to like take breaths, because a lot of us are anxious, we're not breathing, we're shallow breathing, we're holding our breath, we're tense and holding our bodies. But just to relax and breathe, and also again to just take those, even if you can only tolerate 60 seconds of
Yes.
like meditation. And I know that's sometimes a taboo word in the Black community where it's like, I don't want to do nothing, you know, against God. But sometimes we gotta slow down. God wants us to slow down and know what's going on with us. I had the same kind of thoughts in the beginning, like, what is meditation? Am I about to be doing some demonic stuff, right? Um,
Right.
but just being able to like breathe and your emotions, even if it's for 60 seconds, and building yourself up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Oh, thank you so much for joining me, Kerrie.
Thank you for having me. I've been so excited about this opportunity to sit with you, and I am happy that I was able to do it.
Oh my gosh, me too.
A great time.
Well, you have a wonderful night. And we'll definitely be doing more because this is
Yeah,
not the
I will be happy in the future.
yes. Well, you have a great night.
Thank
I
you.
will make sure to link all of your info. I have some of your info in the bio already in the description
Mhm.
of it. And, anything else you want me to add for people to be able to contact you, things like that, shoot it over to me and I will make
Okay.
sure that everyone can have that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a great
Awesome.
night.
You too.
Bye bye.
Night.